You know who has way too many successor chapters? Blood Angels. And Ultramarines, I guess, but that's not important. If you decide to go on Lexiconum, let's say, that's the site I personally use for my topic searches. If you take a peek at the successor chapters for the Blood Angels, it's like comically large with how many successors have been made of these guys. But I decided it would be kind of fun to bridge this gap between Vampire the Masquerade, something I talk about all the time on this channel, and 40k. And also, I don't know, I just want to talk about Vampire Space Marines. It could be fun. And you know what? The Blood Drinkers have a genuinely really interesting backstory and history, so I'm just gonna jump into it. So first and foremost, the Blood Drinkers are a second founding successor chapter, maybe. So this is where we get into my favorite thing ever when it comes to 40k lore, conflicting sources. Because on one hand, they were declared to be a second founding chapter. On the other hand, starting around 5th edition with the 5th edition Blood Angels Codex, they were declared an unknown founding chapter. Which, I'm not gonna lie, if you actually look through their history, they don't seem to be super active in like M32. The first actual engagement they ever did was the Battle of Hell's Hollow with the Blood Angels and the Angels Incarnate, where they fought a bunch of Chaos Cultists. This was in M37, and that is like the first noted event of their history. Doesn't really sound like a second founding chapter, because just for comparison, the Flesh Terrors, a actual second founding Space Marine chapter for the Blood Angels. These guys are active right away, and I believe if the Blood Drinkers were around back then, they probably would have been present at the Battle of the Beast. Now this might sound like a very dumb thing to, I guess, focus on, very in the weeds, so to say. Yeah, yes it is. But I think finding the actual true events in 40k sources is part of what makes this so fun, and why I like 40k lore so much. But the main thing is, right off the bat, the Blood Drinkers are kind of a mysterious chapter with a lot of conflicting sources internally, which bleeds into the big thing with the Blood Drinkers, is that they are a chapter that's been plagued with issues, like right from creation. The big thing when it comes to the Blood Drinkers is they have a pretty bad mutation. This is pretty evident from the name, but they have a mutation that gives them really extreme bloodthirst, like literal bloodthirst. I know the Blood Angels are already vampire marines, but shock surprise, the Blood Drinkers, they want it more. They're way more into blood. This is because they have an overactive omega organ, which is, I think we all forget that this organ is a thing. I'm gonna be completely honest. But this is the organ for a Space Marine that lets them imbue the memories of meat they eat. Tactically useful if you ever wanted to, like, I don't know, eat a cow and remember the pasture it was on. Though it's not actually that super literal. You kind of get like a faint traces of like emotions, memories, all that stuff. It's more complicated than it sounds, but whatever. The Blood Angels already have like an overactive omega organ, which is the reason why the bread thirst is a thing. The Blood Drinkers have that even harder. But they can't even catch a break with that, because they also, really early on in their history, all started falling to the Black Rage. The Black Rage, for I guess anybody who doesn't know, is the effect of Sanguinius's death sent psychic reverberations through his gene seed, his bloodline, like all that shit. This puts any Marine struck with the Black Rage in the state where they believe that they are Sanguinius at the actual defense of Terra, fighting all of those heretics. They're just permanently lost, by the way, to the Black Rage if this happens. They're essentially dead. Unless you're really cool and you're Mephiston, then it doesn't count. But they all started falling to the Black Rage really quickly. So they decided, we gotta do something about this. And one Marine in particular, he decided to go a little further than the other. It's a single Marine named Holos. And in this dream, he climbed the mountain, Mount Calcium. He climbed this mountain. At the top of the mountain, he found an angel, maybe even Sanguinius himself. And this angel told him the secret, reversing all of this horrible shit. This would become the Rites of Holos. And all they had to do, very simple, very easy. They just had to murder their chapter serfs and kill them and drink them in a ritual. And it specifically had to be murder, by the way, because the target had to be unwilling. It's a whole big thing. Blood given, blood taken. Now, the very astute members of my audience might immediately have alarm bells ringing. Wait a second, Sanguinius? He has his sons killing people, just murder? That doesn't sound like him. Congratulations. You caught something very obvious that Holos didn't. So this was a demon, not an angel, a greater demon. It is heavily implied to be Kairos Fate Weaver himself, doing a funny little ploy. Holos made this deal with him to undergo this ritual, and in exchange, he didn't cure the Black Rage. He instead changed how it worked. Because now the Blood Drinkers really don't have the Black Rage that much. It's super rare because it's very different. Instead of being transported as like sanguineous and you're murdering people, instead, whenever you fall to the Black Rage as a blood drinker, instead of seeing yourself as sanguineous, murdering heretics, you are instead at Mount Calcelium, and you climb it and you find an angel, and this angel is tempting you with power. Lots of evil things that he's trying to whisper you to do. Now, every single Marine who undergoes this, they have to deny this power. They have to reject this deal. Because if for any reason they accept, or even think about accepting, even give like a maybe, perhaps, the entire chapter will fall to chaos. They will all become immediately corrupted. Thankfully, there's only been like 18 members of the Blood Drinkers that have been like confirmed to have this Black Rage. It hasn't been a lot. It could be way worse if they were following at the original same rate and all of them were undergoing this. I feel like they would have become Renegade by now. And they still don't really have big issues with the Black Rage. Instead, it is seen as like kind of a religious privilege. Instead of the normal culture around the Black Rage and you're basically dead and treated as dead, the Blood Drinkers instead view it as this moment where they get to go back and they get to see the history of their chapter being saved. It's very hopeful. It seems like a blessing to undergo this. You know, the only exchange is they have to murder people and drink their blood in just some sort of evil, fucked up sacrament. It's normal business as usual for a Space Marine chapter. Thankfully, they keep this hidden, because I feel like if anyone knew this was happening, oh boy. So apparently with the new Codex supplement for 10th edition, the Blood Drinkers, I found this stated, Blood Drinkers can control the Black Rage a lot better than most, which I think is another weird, interesting aspect, because on one hand, that's a very cool concept. I really like that concept. You're still lost. There's that little glimmer of like personality and soul in there. The downside is they have to do horrific blood murders. On the other hand, this also seems to be contradictory to the fact that, you know, the Black Rage has changed, and that instead you don't go into this sanguineous madness, you see a vision. And also not many of them have the Black Rage anymore. It's really rare. It's only been like 18. Those are all stated with each other. So the only thing I can assume in between these is, one, maybe I'm just reading this completely wrong. On the other hand, there's a chance that this is like a rare privilege to get this mountain vision. And so a bunch of them, if they follow the Black Rage, they go into a normal Black Rage state, and then others will be given that vision. Or they're seen as a nice, peaceful, like vision, very like Pyro from TF2. And then on the outside, they're, you know, sawing somebody in half with a chainsword. All viable options, I imagine. And all this to fulfill a funny little scheme from Kairos Fate Weaver, who's very down to play the long game. Just like he's ready to lock it in, wait a few thousand years, and then eventually they might fall, because one dude will be like, yeah, sure, I'll take your power. I am not a fan of the idea of like erasing random chapters, because I think that that is unfun for anybody who likes and plays them. However, if I found a story or a short story that was the Blood Drinkers falling to chaos because of Kairos, that sounds like a really cool plot line. I am not gonna lie. But yeah, that's Blood Drinkers. I think they're really fun. You know what? I'm just gonna promise this now. I think this would be a fun idea, spinning off this theme. I might talk about the Blood Ravens next. We'll see. It depends how I feel. As always, a huge shout out to my channel members who make these videos possible. I'm greatly appreciative of supporting me. And an even bigger shout out to the channel members that subscribed at the highest level, that being Robbie Beckmeyer and Czar Shadow. Absolute legends, both of you. That's it. Yeah, like, subscribe, YouTube shit, I don't know. See ya.